Did you know that one of the most important documents in American history, the Declaration of Independence, was written on hemp paper? Hemp is a robust, durable fiber produced from the marijuana plant. Marijuana or cannabis was once the largest agricultural crop in the world. Aside from declaring our nation's freedom, cannabis was also used to produce fabrics, lighting oils, and most medicines and rope. In fact, there are upwards of 5,000 known uses of hemp, from textiles to sticky notes, and over 25,000 uses from cellulose found in marijuana, ranging from car doors to dynamite. It's common knowledge that marijuana is illegal in the United States, but did you know that one of the first laws pertaining to marijuana was an order demanding farmers to grow the plant? So why is it illegal today? Does the law against it banning marijuana work? Who would benefit from the legalization of marijuana? The negative effects of prohibition, the economic benefits of legalization, and misconceptions about health effects are arguments I'll be explaining today. As a society, we are no stranger to the prohibition of substances. Let's look back to the prohibition of alcohol. In the year 1826, the American temperance movement broke the ground that led to the prohibition of alcohol by President Woodrow Wilson in 1920. Why was alcohol prohibited? The answer is in the name of the movement. Alcohol gives people a short temper. It impairs your judgment, integrity, physical abilities like vision and balance, and if you ingest enough, you can die from alcohol poisoning. It's easy to see why someone would want to outlaw this horrible drug. But society could not resist temptation. Now let's look at the effects of marijuana. It was first prohibited during World War II because it made people pacifists in that it made them not want to fight. It essentially has the exact opposite effect as alcohol. So we outlawed a drug that made people oppose violence. This just doesn't make sense to me. Prohibition of alcohol gave rise to organized crime. Famous gangsters like Al Capone and Machine Gun Kelly became infamous for controlling the illegal production and distribution of alcohol. There were more speakeasies, a place where alcohol could be illegally obtained, in New York City during Prohibition than there are bars and taverns in the United States today. The prohibition of marijuana has produced the same effect of violence and organized crime. Every day people are killed because of marijuana. Not because of the chemical effects, but because controlling this million-dollar industry is worth murder to some people. After they lifted the law prohibiting alcohol, you no longer saw this kind of violence. So the same could be assumed for legalizing marijuana. The last reason prohibition of alcohol was dropped was that the government had no way to regulate the distribution of alcohol. There were no organizations like the FDA inspecting Al Capone's whiskey barrels. The same can be said about marijuana. There are over 50 million marijuana users today, and all of these people trust the drug dealer's word that there is nothing laced in the weed, like cocaine or other hard drugs. Legalizing marijuana would ensure that buyers and users were getting exactly what they expected: a natural plant grown on a government-regulated farm. Also, what's stopping these drug dealers from selling to minors? Dealers don't care if you're 4 or 40. Anyone who has the cash will get the stash. A recent survey was shown that children find it easier to obtain illegal drugs than they do buying legal drugs like alcohol or prescription pills. Legalizing marijuana would ensure that it could only be sold to adults and would decrease the marijuana use among teens and young adults. Government spends millions of dollars keeping marijuana illegal, while drug dealers make hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit every year. Think of the legal jobs and revenue that could be produced if marijuana was made legal. Many growers and dealers are on the same side as the government in that they don't want to see cannabis legal because that would affect their lavish lifestyles. 50 million people paying taxes on marijuana could do nothing but benefit our nation's economic system. Marijuana is ounce for ounce worth more than gold, silver, and most other legal commodities in the United States. Now let's look at what the 50 million people are getting themselves into. A study done by the Reagan administration announced that monkeys who had been exposed to marijuana smoke had suffered brain atrophy and died, thus concluding marijuana kills brain cells. What they didn't tell you is how the study was conducted. Monkeys were pumped with continuous marijuana smoke through a gas mask and deprived of oxygen for long periods of time. The brain cells were killed due to lack of oxygen, and the monkeys suffocated. This experiment should have been avoided, but people still today believe that marijuana kills brain cells just because that's what they've been told. In 2005, a new study showed that marijuana use could actually stimulate brain cell growth. Lung cancer is also associated with marijuana, but this is also false because marijuana does not contain the radioactive chemicals found in cigarettes. Marijuana does temporarily paralyze the cilia in your lungs, but there have been 0 cases linked to lung cancer. Marijuana is habit-forming, but users who have quit experience none of the agonizing withdrawal symptoms that come with other addictive drugs like cocaine and heroin. As young adults are often given a choice between jail and a clinic when they are arrested for marijuana-associated crime, they often choose the clinic, and thus perceiving that marijuana is addictive. A study showed that marijuana falls on the bottom of the ranking, below cigarettes, alcohol, hard drugs, and caffeine. Caffeine accounts for 10,000 deaths annually, following just below cigarettes and alcohol. Cigarettes account for 430,000 deaths per year, while alcohol accounts for over 85,000. How many people have died from marijuana smoking? The answer is a whopping 0. Going all the way back to 10,000 BC, you cannot find one single case of a marijuana overdose. Marijuana is one of the only substances you cannot die from if overused, even if you tried. Let's review. Cannabis is non-addictive, it poses more medical benefits than negative health effects, and legalizing it could help us out in our current economic slump. The only negative effects of cannabis come from the crime that it generates through supply and demand issues. I'm not suggesting that we let our airline pilots and nuclear operators smoke on the job. The government should still administer drug tests and have regulations, just like on alcohol and cigarettes. I feel that our nation could benefit greatly from legalization and regulation of recreational marijuana use. Thank you, and I hope you learned a great deal.